All right, so like I said, we are on page 137. I'm going to do the odd ones, and you guys are going to do the even ones for homework. So this first section or category, whatever, it says, write a quadratic function in factored form with each set of given characteristics. So we're going to write factored form. Let me go back to the notes so we can remember what factored form even is. So factored form is in box number 10, the one all the way to the right. And then as you can see, it says f of x is equal to a parentheses x minus r1 parentheses x minus r2. I'm going to write that down on the skills practice. F of x is equal to a x minus r1 x minus r2. Okay, so this is the factored form. And let's take a look at number 1. It says write a quadratic function that represents a parabola that opens downwards and has x-intercepts -2 and 5. So I'm going to call this R1 and this one R2. Okay, so if it opens downwards, that means your A has to be negative. Okay, remember I repeated that like 3 times earlier in the notes that if you're going to open downwards, you need your A value to be negative. And they don't tell you anything else. So you can actually choose whatever negative number you want right now. So negative what? What do you want us to pick? Just type it in the chat or say it out loud. Negative what?
-2.
-2, great. Okay, so now I'm going to put it in our equation. F of x is equal to, now where the A value is, I'm going to put -2, parentheses, x minus, our R1 is over here. So it says x minus -2. When you're subtracting a negative, that's the same thing as adding the positive. So I'm going to actually write x plus 2. I'm going to write x plus 2 because our R1 was -2. So you kind of just do the opposite sign. And then over here for the R2, x minus 5. And let me just highlight that in another color. So I got the -5 because we have R2 is +5 over here. So I put a -5. Remember, you just do the opposite signs. And then for our A value, we just chose any negative number. You could have had -2. If you want, you can put -24. You can put -10, -1/2. As long as it's a negative number, I don't care. You can even put -pi. So any negative number will work because any negative number will make it open downwards. Are there any questions on this one? I'm going to pause here so you guys can ask. All right, let's do the next one. Write a quadratic function that represents a parabola that opens upwards. Oops, I wanted to underline that. Opens upwards and has x-intercepts -8, so that's our R1, 0, and -1, 0, so that's our R2. Okay, if it opens upwards, I just need any positive number. So I'm going to write A is positive, and then you can shout it out or type whatever I hear or see first. What do you want our A to be? Any positive number.
8.
What?
8.
8. Okay, thank you. All right, so positive 8. If you don't like 8, you can pick another one. It doesn't matter as long as you choose a positive number. So let's write it out. F of x is equal to 8 parentheses x minus, all right, so let's see what our R1 is. Our R1 was -8. So since it's a -8, I want to do the opposite sign. Instead of -8, I'm going to write +8. Opposite sign. And then over here for our R2, it says -1. So I'm going to have x, should I say +1 or -1?
+1.
+1, good, is literally the opposite. So if it says -1 there, I'm going to write x plus 1. So this is our factored form. Are there any questions for this one? I'm going to pause and give you guys a chance to ask. All right, I'm going to scroll up a little bit just because that way maybe it makes it easier for us to see. Last one that we're doing as an example, write a quadratic function that represents a parabola that opens downwards and has x-intercepts -5, 0, so that's our R1, and 2, 0, so that's our R2. Okay, open downward. Should A be positive or negative?
Positive.
Wait, down,
Negative.
down. Negative.
I read other.
That's okay. So if it's, wait, I just wrote A is downwards. A is negative. See, we all make mistakes. It's okay. A is negative because it opens downwards. Okay, now somebody just tell me a negative number.
Right, -5.
All right, -5. Cool. So f of x is equal to, so let's put our a value, so -5, parentheses, x. Okay, so then here is our R1. It says -5. Should I say +5 or -5?
Plus.
+5, good. And then, let me just highlight that. Then we have x, and then our R2 is right over here. So what should I write?
-2.
Good, -2. So you just do the opposite symbol. So for the -5 R1, we said +5. For the +2 R2, we said -2. Any questions, please let me know. I'm gonna pause the video. Okay, so that was section A. Let's scroll down to section B. So section B says determine the x-intercepts for each function using technology. So that means we're gonna go to desmos.com. Okay, I'll write out desmos.com just in case you forgot what the website was. Desmos.com. Okay, we're gonna write the function in factored form. Okay, so let's type this equation x squared minus 8x plus 7 into Desmos. So I'm gonna exit this one and I'm gonna go to Desmos. Let it load. We're gonna type that equation. Okay, so you don't have to type the f of x part. You can just type x squared minus 8x plus 7. Okay, so we want to notice what our x-intercepts are, because that's going to help us figure out how to write it in factored form. So I want you to notice that the x-intercepts are 1, 0 and 7, 0. Okay, 1, 0 and 7, 0. Remember that. I'm also going to write them down here. 1, 0 and 7, 0. So these are the x-intercepts. And then we're going to write the function in factored form. So when we write it in factored form, let me remind you over here, we need the a value. So I said to you that the a value is going to be the same in every single form of these. So if you look over here, just look for the coefficient in front of the x squared. Right now, I don't see a coefficient, so that actually means our coefficient is 1. So our a value is 1. So when you write out your factored form, you have f of x is equal to 1. You don't have to write the 1, but I'm going to write it for emphasis. 1 times x minus our first R1, and then x minus our R2. So this one came from the a value in the front. So now for our factored form, it's 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 7. So this is our factored form. Do you guys have a question? I'm going to pause the video so that you guys can ask. All right, next graph is number 3. We're going to go ahead and type number 3's equation into desmos.com. So let me go to desmos.com. Let's get rid of that. And let's type in the equation for number 3. So it was negative x squared minus 20x minus 75. Okay, so then I can't see the entire shape, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Oh, there it is. And we want our x-intercepts. So I'm going to click on them until it shows. So -15, 0 and -5, 0. Just going to have you guys look at that for a little bit so you can remember -15, 0 and -5, 0. Let's go ahead and write this down on the skills practice book. Okay, I'm also just going to draw a line here because I don't want my answers to blend. So -15, 0 and -5, 0. Those were our x-intercepts. Now we're going to write it in factored form. So to find our a value, I want us to look at the number, the coefficient that's in front of x squared. I just see the negative symbol, so that means it's a -1. So then when you're writing your factored form, f of x is equal to -1. You don't have to write the 1. You could just write the negative symbol. That's totally fine too. But just for emphasis, I'm going to write the -1 because it's not wrong. So -1 is our a value. Then we have x minus, and then we have our first r1, which is -15. So should I write -15 or +15?
Plus.
Yes, +15. And then we have x minus our r2, which is -5. So should I write +5 or -5?
+5.
+5, good. It's just the opposite of whatever your x-intercept was. So we have x plus 15 and x plus 5 because our x-intercepts were -15 and -5. And our a value is just the coefficient out in front. All right, are there any questions? I'll pause the video so you guys have a chance to ask, and I'll try to draw a really straight line across this. Okay, that's as good as I can do. Okay, I'll pause the video. Let's do number 5. So 5 has that equation. Let's go type it into Desmos. So let's get rid of that. And then we have -3x squared minus 9x plus 12. Okay, so here's our graph. You click on it until you see our intercepts. So we have -4, 0 and +1, 0. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a moment to look and confirm that it is -4, 0 and 1, 0. All right, let's go write this down on our skills practice. So we had -4, 0 and +1, 0. Okay, and then I also want us to figure out what is our a value. So what number do you see in front of the x squared?
3.
Positive or negative?
Negative.
Good. And by the way, since it is a negative, that's why our graph opened downwards. But yeah, so f of x is equal to -3, and we got that -3 from right here. It's our a value. It's the number in the front. Then we have parentheses x minus. Okay, so our first r value is -4. So should I write +4 or -4?
+4.
+4, good. And then we have x minus, and then our second r value is 1. So should I write +1 or -1?
-1.
Perfect, -1. So remember, we're just doing the opposite of whatever sign the x-intercepts were. So since we had a -4, 0, we said +4. Since we had a 1, 0, we said -1. I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions for this section. 2, 1. All right, so we had a question to answer number 6, and now that I look at it, I think we should just do it together. So let's go ahead and type that into Desmos. X squared minus 6x. Okay, so then here are our two x-intercepts, 0, 0, and 6, 0. So I'll give you guys a second to just look at it and acknowledge that it is 0, 0, and 6, 0. Okay, now let's go ahead and write this in. Oops. 0, 0, and 6, 0. Okay. Also, what is our A value? What number do you see here? Kind of like number 1. Well, it's a coefficient of 1. If you don't see any number, it's just a coefficient of 1. So f of x is equal to 1. That 1 appears here now. Then we have x minus, where's the color? 0. So you can write x minus 0. And then x minus 6. Okay, so I know that looks really weird, but let's simplify this. I know I didn't simplify the other ones, but we're going to simplify this one just so that I can show you what it looks like in simplified form. So you can have f of x is equal to, you don't have to write the 1 because 1 multiplied by anything is the anything. So I'm not going to write the 1 anymore. Then instead of x minus 0, this part, x minus 0 is just x. So I'm going to just write x. And then we have x minus 6. So this would be our final factored form for number 6. If I were to simplify it all the way. Because you don't have to write the 1. Because 1 times anything is just the anything. And then x minus 0 just turns into x, which is right over here. And then the x minus 6 can be written as x minus 6. Okay, any questions for number 6? All right, so now let's scroll down to part C. I'll just scroll like that. And it says, use technology to determine the vertex of each quadratic function given in standard form. Rewrite the function in vertex form. So let me remind you what vertex form looks like, because now we're not writing in factored anymore. We're going to write vertex form. So I'm going to switch over to the notes boxes. Vertex form is in box number 9. So it says f of x is equal to a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So I'm going to write this down in our skills practice once it loads. Okay, there we go. Where do I have space? I guess I have space here. F of x is equal to a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. Okay, and then I guess I should write that the vertex would be our h comma k. All right, so this is our vertex form, and let's go ahead and use the technology to graph this. So we're going to go type number 1's equation into Desmos. So let me go type that first equation into Desmos. Okay, so the first equation is x squared minus 6x minus 27. Okay, so this is our graph, and we are looking for the vertex now. So not these 2 points. We don't care about those right now. We want to write it in vertex form. So I'm going to scroll down and find our vertex. The vertex is either the lowest point if it's facing upwards, or the upside down version would be the highest point. But now this is our vertex, 3, negative 36. I'm going to let you guys stare at it for a little bit. I don't know how much you're lagging, but I want you to confirm that you can see that the vertex is 3, negative 36. Hopefully by now you can see that that is our vertex. And so I'm going to go ahead and write that down in our skills practice. 3, negative 36. Okay, so I'm going to write it. 3, negative 36. That is our vertex. Now to write in vertex form, let's find our a value. We always need to find our a value. What's our a value here? I don't see any number, so what should it be?
1.
1, good. Let me just highlight that. Here's our a value. Cool, so let's write out the vertex form. F of x is equal to, here's our 1, and then parentheses x minus h. So it's literally going to be the opposite of our 3. So let me highlight that so you can see where that's from. Since it's a positive 3 here, I want you to write minus 3. So it's the opposite, kind of like how we did it before. So it's a minus 3, and then I need you to square it. That's important. It's squared. That's how the vertex form goes. And then last but not least, we have the y value, so minus 36. I'm out of colors. I don't have another color to like highlight in. I'll just highlight in yellow again. So the minus 36 is the same thing. So since it says negative 36 in our vertex, we want to subtract 36, okay? And I know that can be confusing, but don't forget for our tests and everything that we do in this class, it's all open notes. So you can use this as part of your notes. Okay, so we got an interesting question. Somebody says, why isn't it plus 36? Okay, good question. Let me rewrite this equation. You don't have to copy any of this stuff down, okay? What I'm about to write, you don't have to copy it, but I'm going to explain why it's a minus 36 and not a plus 36. So technically, it should be opposite whenever it's paired with the variable. So like this minus 3, it's paired with this x value of 3. And so we do the opposite sign because it's paired with the x. So then if I were to rewrite this equation, f of x is equal to 1x minus 3 squared minus 36. F of x is the same thing as y. So y is equal to 1x minus 3 squared minus 36. This negative 36, that's our y value. So let me pair up the 36 with the y. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides. Then you get y plus 36 is equal to 1x minus 3 squared. So then this is where it would be plus 36 right over here. It's when it's paired with the variable that it's meant to be with. So because the negative 36 is a y value, when you have it next to your y value, it should be plus 36. But since we write equations with y by itself, when you bring it to the, the other side, it will then become a minus 36. So that's why it's a minus 36, because it's away from its y value. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So hopefully you listened to what I said and you didn't write this down because you don't have to, but that's the reason why. Okay, now, yeah, were there any other questions for number 1? Because that was our final answer. I'll pause the video to see if you guys have any questions for number 1. All right, let's do number 2, or number 3, I mean. Okay, so for number 3, we have to go ahead and graph that in Desmos. Also, let me just draw a line here because otherwise it'll just be too messy. Okay, let's go graph it. We have 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. Okay, I can't see it, so, oh, there it is. Whoa. Okay, anyways, find our vertex, the lowest point right there, and acknowledge that that is our vertex. It is the lowest point, and it is at 1, negative 8. So 1, negative 8. Okay, hopefully by now you can see that it is 1, negative 8, and so I'm going to go ahead and write this down on our skills practice. So 1, negative 8. And I'm lagging. Wow, that 8 is so ugly. There we go. Now we can write out our vertex form. F of x is equal to, what should our a value be?
2.
2, good. It's this number, the number in front of your x squared. So I'm going to put that 2 over here. And then we have parentheses x. And then we want the opposite of this guy. So it's a positive one. We want to say minus 1. And don't forget to square it. Very important that you square it. So x minus 1 squared. And then finally, we're going to keep the same number that this one has. So it says minus 8, then you want to write minus 8. This one is not opposite. Only the one inside the parentheses is opposite because that one's paired with its x. Oh, that sounds weird, paired with your x. But yeah, only the one inside the parentheses is opposite because it's paired with the x. The minus 8 on the outside is not paired with the y. It's far away from the y, so it gets to stay as a minus 8. Okay, let me draw a dividing line. And let me pause it to see if you guys have any questions. Let's go ahead and type the last one, number 5, into Desmos. So we have negative x squared plus 15x minus 54. Okay, there we go. And here's our vertex. It's okay that it's got decimals. Who cares? They're just regular numbers. So we have 7.5, 2.25. 7.5 and 2.25. Okay, let's go ahead and write that down. 7.5, 2.25. I don't know why I'm lagging suddenly, so hopefully I can stay not lagging for the rest of class. So writing it in factored form, or sorry, vertex form, what is our a value? What number do we have here?
-1.
Yes, -1. So you can write it as a -1, or you can just write the negative. It's okay because you don't have to write the 1 piece because 1 multiplied by anything is still the anything. So I'm just going to write it as a negative this time, but you can also write the -1 if that makes you feel better. So you can write a negative sign or you can write a -1. Then you have x minus this number, 7.75, and then close parentheses and don't forget to square it. So let me highlight that. It is a minus 7.75 because we had a positive 7.75. And then at the very end, should I write plus 2.25 or minus 2.25?
Minus.
This one, we don't do the opposite. So plus. I know, this one's a little bit confusing, right? So let's see. It's going to be plus 2.25. I guess I can write it out. The inside is opposite. And then this one, I'll just say keep. Is that keep same? Keep the same? Keep same sign. However you want to phrase it. I feel like English isn't working for me right now, so I'm going to write keep same. That doesn't sound right, but the 2.25 gets to keep the same sign. If it's a positive here, we're going to add it. And then for the one inside the parentheses, that one's the opposite. Okay? Are there any questions for this section? I'll pause the video to see if you guys have any questions. So section D, I'm going to scroll down now, says write an equation for a quadratic function that satisfies each set of given characteristics. Okay, so for number 1, it says the vertex is -1, 4, and the parabola opens down. So this is kind of like the first few sections that we did where we're not going to graph it anymore. We don't have to. We have all the information we need here. So if it tells us our vertex, we want to use vertex form. Let me rewrite vertex form over here. Let me write ax minus h squared plus k. So this is vertex form. And then if our parabola opens down, do you want a positive or negative a value?
Negative.
Negative. Good. Okay, so we get to come up with any negative a value we want. F of x is equal to negative what? What do you want?
-4.
-4, great. -4 parentheses x, and then minus h. So this is the opposite, okay? Opposite of -1. Then you want to say +1. Don't forget to square it. And then this one is keep same. My really, really bad English. Keep same. So since it's a +4, you want to write +4. Okay? So opposite inside, keep it on the same if it's outside. And if you didn't want -4, you can pick any other negative number. So that's number 1. Let's do number 2. Number 2 says the vertex is 3, -2, and the parabola opens up. So if we are opening up, do you want a positive or a negative a?
Positive A.
Positive, good. Positive a. And then I'm not going to rewrite the vertex form, but they gave us a vertex, so therefore we want to use vertex form. So vertex form's up here. Let's just refer to that so I don't have to rewrite it. All right, f of x is equal to, give me any positive number you want.
6.
6. Great. Okay, and then parentheses x. So here's the opposite. It says 3. What should I write?
-3.
Good. -3. Don't forget to square it after you close your parentheses. And then this one's outside the parentheses. So if it says -2, what should I write here?
-2.
Good. -2. So that one you keep the same. Okay? So inside the parentheses is opposite. Outside, you keep it the same. So 6 parentheses x -3 squared -2. All right, those two are pretty similar. So I'm going to pause here, see if you guys have questions on those two. Okay, so number 5 says the x-intercepts are 5 and 12, and the parabola opens up. So now that we have x-intercepts, this is like that very first section we did. We want to write it in factored form. So let me write out factored form for you. Okay, so notice that both of these are inside parentheses. Both the R1 and R2 are inside your parentheses. So therefore, they're the opposite, okay? And our parabola opens up. So do you want A to be positive or negative? It's opening up.
Positive.
Positive, good. So give me a positive number.
3.
3, great. Positive 3, parentheses x, and then these are inside parentheses, so they're going to be opposite. So let's have, instead of a 5, we're going to write -5. And then for the 12 that they gave us, what should I write?
-12.
Yeah, -12. Good. Oops, that was the wrong color I highlighted it in, but it's okay. I'll just keep it as green. There we go. So 3 parentheses x -5 parentheses x -12. Any questions about those? Or that one? So let's continue for 7, 9, and 11. So this is the one that, these 3 problems are the ones that correspond to box number 16 in our notes. So we're gonna maybe refer to that later on in just a little bit. Actually, let's refer to it right now, after reading the problem. The vertex is -2, -3, and the parabola passes through the point 1, 6. So we are going to need to solve for the a value. Okay, so the vertex is -2, -3. That means we're going to want to choose vertex form. I'm going to write it over here because it's where I have space. So I'm going to write out vertex form here. You don't have to write it with me. You just need to see it so that we can refer to it later. So here's our vertex form. I'm going to go back to the notes now. What should we do from here? If it would just load for me, please and thank you. Okay, box number 16, which is right over here. When you're calculating A, we choose your quadratic form. We just did that. We chose vertex form. And then we're going to substitute key points. So substitute the point they gave us, and then that will help us solve for A. and then we just rewrite the equation. Okay? So essentially, we choose our quadratic form, which we just did, and then substitute the point in to solve for a. That's what box 16 says. So that's what we're going to do. So let me go back to skills practice. Okay, so let's plug in our vertex into our vertex form equation. I'm going to write it, actually, oh no, where did it go? Oh great, let me just pause the video until it loads. Oh, just kidding, it loaded. Wait, that's not our page. Okay, here we go. F of x is equal to a parentheses x. Over here we have a -2, so I'm going to write a +2, square it, and then over here we have a -3, so I'm going to write a -3 because this is outside of the parentheses, so you keep that one the same. Only the ones inside the parentheses are the opposite. So here's our form, and we're going to plug in the point they gave us. So they gave us the point 1, 6. I'm going to zoom in so I have more space. And also so you don't have to strain your eyes looking at something so tiny. 1 is your x value, 6 is your y value, because on these points it's always x, y, and we're going to plug that in. So f of x, this part, that is the y value, so I'm going to replace it with 6. So 6 is equal to a, parentheses. Okay, right here I see an x. On our point, the x is 1, so I'm going to say 1 plus 2 squared minus 3. So all I did here was I plugged in the point. So instead of f of x, I put 6 because that is your y value. And then we have a, which we are going to look for. And then we have parentheses 1 plus 2 squared. So the 1 is because our x is 1. And then we have a -3 at the end. So let's solve for a. To solve for a, I want us to add 3. We're going to get 6 plus 3 is 9 is equal to a, parentheses 1 plus 2 is 3 squared. And then let's simplify out what 3 squared is. I'm going to continue writing over here because it's where I have space. 9 is equal to a times 3 squared. 3 squared is 9. So we have a times 9. Okay, so we have a times 9. When you get rid of the multiplying, you're going to do the opposite. So we're going to divide by 9 on both sides. So then the multiply by 9 cancels with the divide by 9, leaving us with a. And then 9 divided by 9 is just 1. So we found our a value. Our a value is 1. Okay, gonna pause here and see if we have any questions up until this point. We are not done yet, but I want to see if we have any questions up until here. Sounds like there were no questions, so let's finally write out our final form. So we were pretty close when we wrote out this one. It's just that we didn't have the a, so now all you have to do is replace a with 1, and we're good. So f of x is equal to, where they had an a, we're just going to write 1, x plus 2 squared minus 3. So I literally just wrote this equation, except where the a was, we finally found what our a was. It's 1. So I just get to plug it in, and this is your final form. Of course, you don't have to write that it's multiplied by 1. If I wanted to, I could just have it as, I could just have it as this. F of x is equal to x plus 2 squared minus 3, because remember, if you don't see anything there, it's being multiplied by 1. So this shows us that our a value is 1. So this is correct as well. Okay, let's go to number 9. Number 9 says the function has zeros 6, 0, and -4, 0, and the parabola passes through the point 0, 8. Parabola is just another word for like the shape of this graph. I don't know if you remember that or if I mentioned it earlier, but yeah. So we have zeros 6, 0, and -4, 0, which means that we want factored form. Let me zoom out so I have a space to write factored form. Factored form, to remind you, is this a x minus r1, x minus r2. So we're choosing this form because they gave us our zeros. Okay, so let's substitute in those zeros. It's what we know so far, so we're going to put those in. F of x is equal to a, we don't know it yet, x minus our r1 is 6, so I'm going to write minus 6. Remember, it's the opposite because these are inside the parentheses. And then for the other one, we have a negative 4. So remember, since it's inside the parentheses, you're going to do the opposite. We're going to have x plus 4. So we have x minus 6 because it was a positive 6, 0. And then we have x plus 4 because it was a negative 4, 0. And then now we're going to solve for a. And how are we going to solve for a? We're going to plug in the point they gave us. They gave us the point 0, 8. So that means that our x value is 0 and our y value is 8. So I'm going to zoom in here because now I'm going to need space. So we're going to plug that in. So when it's y is 8, I'm going to replace the f of x with 8. Replacing f of x with 8 is equal to a. We don't know what a is yet. Parentheses, x minus 6. So since our x value is 0, I'm going to say 0 minus 6. And then, oh, I see another x. I'm still going to put a 0 here. So 0 plus 4. So 8 is equal to a times 0 minus 6 times 0 plus 4. I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions. Let's continue. So we just have to simplify and solve for a. So 8 is equal to a times 0 minus 6, that's a negative 6. 0 plus 4, that's a positive 4. I am going to continue writing over here because that is where I have space. 8 is equal to a multiplied by, what is negative 6 times 4? That is a negative 24. So then if a is being multiplied by negative 24, we're going to try to get rid of that multiplying by doing the opposite of multiplying. We are going to divide. So divide by negative 24, divide by negative 24. And you can get it as a fraction. I think fraction would be better for this. 8 and negative 24, that is your fraction. We can simplify that because both the top and bottom are divisible by 8. So if we just divide by 8 on the top and bottom, we will get 1 over negative 3 as your fraction, because 8 divided by 8 is 1, and negative 24 divided by 8 is 3. So your fraction of 8 over negative 24 simplifies to 1 over negative 3. Equals, those cancel out, and we get a. So our a is 1 over negative 3, same thing as negative 1/3. You can put that negative sign in the front, you can put it on the top, or you can put it on the bottom. I'm going to put it just like on the side, so it's negative 1/3. I'm going to pause the video here and see if you guys have any questions for that one. Sounds like there were no questions. So now that we have our a value and we have this form of the equation, which was pretty close, all we have to do is put the a value into that form. So I'm going to write it over here. F of x is equal to our a value, which we just said was negative 1/3, parentheses x minus 6, parentheses x plus 4. And that would be your final answer. So all I did to get this was I took the, I don't know how to point, took this equation that we wrote in the very beginning, where we were only missing the a value, and then I just plugged in the a value that we just solved for. So that's number 9. Okay, and number 11 is really similar to number 7, but we're going to do it anyways together. So it says the vertex is 0, negative 8, and the parabola passes through the point 4, 0. So remember, if it tells us our vertex, then we are going to choose vertex form because vertex form. I don't know how much clearer that can get. So if it's a vertex that they give us, then we choose vertex form. So let me remind you what vertex form looks like. Okay, that's your vertex form. Let's plug in our vertex into the vertex form. So I have our a value, which is just going to be the letter a for now because we don't know what it is. Then we have parentheses x minus, I used yellow. Okay, so this is our x value. So I'm going to write minus 0 squared. And then we're going to keep the sign of this one. So it says minus 8, then we're going to minus 8 on the outside. Okay, so we have this part. We can actually simplify this a little bit. F of x is equal to a parentheses. X minus 0 is just x. So I'm going to write x squared minus 8. In fact, you don't even need the parentheses around x because x is the only thing in the parentheses. So I'm actually going to rewrite that as ax squared minus 8. Okay, so here we are after we plugged in our vertex. And then our next step is to plug in the point 4, 0. So when we plug in this point, 4 is the x value, y is 0. So x is 4, y is 0. Let me zoom in so that you don't have to strain your eyes as much. So where it says f of x, I'm going to put the y value. So I'm going to put 0 is equal to a multiplied by our x squared. So our x value, according to the point they gave us, is 4. So it's 4 comma 0, so the x is 4. So it's a times 4 squared minus 8. Just plugging in our point that they gave us. I'm going to pause here before we simplify, just to see if you guys have any questions. Okay, let's keep going. So we're going to simplify this. 0 is equal to, oh wait, sorry. Let's get a by itself, so I'm going to add 8s to both sides. That gives us 0 plus 8 is 8, is equal to a times 4 squared. Those cancel out. I'm going to rewrite, or I'm going to continue over here. 8 is equal to a multiplied by 4 squared is 16. So it's 8 equals a times 16. So since we're multiplying by 16, we just get rid of that by dividing by 16. And then we are left with this fraction, 8 over 16. This is simplifiable because both the top and bottom are divisible by 8. So that's what we're going to do. Divide by 8 on the top and on the bottom as well. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. 16 divided by 8 is 2. Those canceled out, so we get that a is 1/2. Are there any questions up till here? All right, if there are no questions, we just need to plug in this a value to our simplified version of our equation. So that's this one that I'm pointing this arrow at over here. So I'm going to rewrite it. F of x is equal to a, we just said that was 1/2. Then we have x squared minus 8. And so here's our final answer. All right, so that would conclude our notes or our skills practice. Because part 5, this next section is not part of what we're doing today, okay? We just finished here. So I'm going to stop the video, and yeah.